It's 1941. A year of quiet courage and turning tides. Ships drift through misted seas, radios whisper across continents, and in a London garden, a child chases fireflies beneath the dim glow of the blackout sky. Let's drift together into the twilight world of 1941. Welcome, dear listener. I'm Toro, and tonight, we journey through another moment in time. The year is 1941, a year wrapped in clouds and candlelight. The world, though weary, continues to turn, children grow, gardens bloom, and lullabies still rise beneath the hum of distant engines. In this story of 1941, we'll wander softly through a planet in transformation. A world at war, yes, but also a world of small kindnesses, of inventions born from necessity, and of dreams that refuse to fade. While storms gathered across oceans and skies, people found comfort in quiet rituals, a cup of tea by a frosted window, a handwritten letter sealed with hope, a favorite song played on the gramophone before bed. Tonight, we'll explore not the roar of history, but its heartbeat, the gentle pulse that kept humanity alive through uncertain times. So settle in. Breathe slow. Let's drift together into 1941. World events. Across the globe, 1941 was a year of crossing thresholds. Winter began with snow and silence, but by year's end, the world had entered a new chapter of war, and yet, within that storm, countless ordinary lives unfolded with grace. In January, the Atlantic was restless, grey waters carrying convoys and courage. Britain stood firm beneath the nightly drone of aircraft, its cities dimly lit, its people resilient and calm. Ration books replaced abundance, but spirits remained bright. Keep calm and carry on was not just a slogan, it was a lullaby whispered through hallways and shelters. Far away, in the snowy fields of the Soviet Union, the first tremors of Operation Barbarossa began in June, a vast invasion that stretched from the Baltic to the Black Sea. But before that day came, life still pulsed in the villages and towns, wheat swayed in the breeze, trains clattered over iron rails, and soldiers kissed loved ones goodbye under the endless sky. Across the Atlantic, the United States still hovered at the edge of the war, a nation watching, waiting, hoping. Franklin D. Roosevelt spoke to his people about the four freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. Words that sounded like prayers in uncertain air. And then, December. The quiet Sunday morning of December 7, 1941, when the world changed. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor brought the United States fully into the conflict, and from that moment onward, the horizon of history glowed with urgency. But even as governments declared war and troops moved across continents, life continued in countless small ways. Farmers plowed frozen soil. Children played marbles on dusty roads. A young woman in Paris wrote in her diary about missing her favorite cafe. A mother in Tokyo sewed a new shirt from old fabric. The great wheels of history turned, but beneath them, humanity breathed on, softly and steadfastly. One story that shaped 1941. Let's pause now and drift closer into one story, one that defined 1941's tender balance between fear and hope. Imagine the frigid waters of the North Atlantic. It's May 1941. The British battleship HMS Hood, pride of the Royal Navy, sails across cold waves, its decks gleaming beneath grey skies. Not far away, the German battleship Bismarck cuts through the mist, powerful and new. What followed was not a single battle, but a symbol of courage, loss, and endurance. When Hood was struck and sank within minutes, only 3 of her crew survived. Yet in the days that followed, the hunt for Bismarck became a shared story across the British Isles. People huddled by radios, listening for updates, holding their breath as if united by one heartbeat. When Bismarck was finally sunk on May 27, the relief was tempered with sorrow, for in this world of conflict, every victory carried tears. But in that moment, hope stirred again. The world had seen not only destruction, but determination. And perhaps that's the truest story of 1941, not of ships or battles, but of endurance. Humanity, battered but unbroken, sailing forward into the unknown night. Daily life around the world. What was it like to live through 1941? In London, mornings began with the rustle of ration books and the faint scent of coal smoke. Housewives queued patiently for butter, eggs, and tea. In the evenings, blackout curtains were drawn tight, and the flicker of a single candle turned every kitchen into a quiet chapel. Children played hopscotch on chalked sidewalks, and school lessons were held in basements when air raid sirens wailed. Yet laughter never entirely left the world. There were dances, letters, postcards filled with jokes and sketches, tiny sparks of light. In rural America, meanwhile, families listened to the radio before supper, programs like Fibber McGee and Molly or the Lone Ranger. Bread cost about 8 cents a loaf, gasoline, 19 cents a gallon. Boys delivered newspapers at dawn, girls wore ribbons made from old cloth to save money for war bonds. In Japan, discipline and community were emphasized, but the pace of daily life remained familiar: street vendors, bicycles, hot tea, and family meals served on low wooden tables. In neutral Sweden and Switzerland, people felt the tension at the borders but cherished peace within. Cafes remained open, children went skating on frozen lakes, and newspapers printed stories about new inventions, literature, and hopes for the world to heal. Even amid rationing, love endured. Weddings were smaller, but no less joyful. Rings were sometimes made of simple metal, but the vows still shone. In every country, candles glowed in windows. People whispered prayers for sons and brothers far away. And as night fell, the stars above shone, the same for everyone, friend and foe alike. Science, inventions, and technology. 1941 was a year of necessity, and necessity often gives birth to innovation. In laboratories and workshops, brilliant minds worked quietly toward discoveries that would shape the post-war world. Radar grew more refined, capable of detecting aircraft through fog and night. In America, scientists at Bell Labs developed early ideas that would one day evolve into modern computers. On kitchen tables, ordinary inventors improvised, sewing reusable cloth bags, creating homemade stoves from scrap metal, or designing clever ways to mend broken tools. Medicine made strides even during hardship. New sulfur drugs became more widely used to fight infection, saving countless lives. In hospitals, nurses moved softly between beds, armed with knowledge, patience, and compassion. Transportation evolved. Airplanes became faster and stronger, though often for grim purposes. Still, their designs would later bring about peaceful travel across the skies. And somewhere, quietly, in secret corners of science, early work began on theories that would transform energy itself. 1941 was a bridge between an old world and a new one, fragile, uncertain, but full of possibility. Culture and the arts. Even in dark times, art glowed. In Britain, Dame Vera Lynn's voice floated through the airwaves, "We'll meet again," comforting millions. In America, swing music filled dance halls. Glenn Miller's Chattanooga Choo Choo made its cheerful debut. Cinema offered escape. Citizen Kane premiered in May, dazzling audiences with its innovation and melancholy beauty. Walt Disney released Dumbo, whose tender message of courage touched hearts everywhere. Writers continued to create. In occupied France, poets wrote in secret notebooks. In the US, Ernest Hemingway published For Whom the Bell Tolls, a novel of love and loss beneath foreign skies. Painters and photographers documented both war and ordinary life, street corners, farmhouses, families at dinner. Their work became quiet acts of remembrance. And children, no matter where they lived, still drew pictures of airplanes and gardens, of mothers and pets, small masterpieces of hope. Media and headlines. News came slowly, but it came faithfully. People gathered around wireless sets, the soft hum and crackle filling the room like a heartbeat. Newspapers cost a few cents, their pages dense with both gravity and distraction. Headlines from 1941 whispered. Roosevelt and Churchill issue Atlantic Charter. Moscow resists, the Winter War deepens. Pearl Harbor bombed, US enters the war. Bismarck sunk in the Atlantic. Dumbo delights audiences young and old. A pound of coffee cost 30 cents in the US. A loaf of bread, 8 cents. A new car, around $925, though few could afford one. And as the year closed, Christmas cards carried more prayers than glitter, wishing simply for peace on earth. People born and people died this year. 1941 welcomed new souls who would later shape art, music, and science. Bob Dylan was born in Minnesota, a future poet of song. Martha Stewart arrived in New Jersey, destined to craft beauty from everyday life. In England, playwright Tom Stoppard took his first breaths, as did singer Paul Simon across the ocean. The world also said farewell to others. Philosopher Henri Bergson passed in Paris, writer James Joyce in Zurich. Virginia Woolf, one of literature's most luminous voices, walked into the river Ouse that March, her legacy forever woven into language itself. Each life, whether beginning or ending, added another thread to the tapestry of history. As 1941 drew to a close, the air was heavy with both fear and faith. The world stood at the edge of transformation. Families lit candles at midnight, whispering wishes for a gentler year to come. In London, church bells rang softly through the winter mist. In New York, snow fell over Times Square, blanketing neon lights. In Moscow, soldiers huddled in the snow, singing quiet songs beneath the stars. And somewhere, a little boy dreamed of peace, not as an idea, but as the sound of waves, the warmth of bread, the hush of his mother's lullaby. 1941 was a year that taught humanity the weight of endurance and the strength of tenderness. As the clock struck midnight, the world turned toward 1942, uncertain, but still dreaming. And so, dear dreamer, our journey through 1941 comes to rest. Thank you for drifting through time with me, for choosing stillness in a restless world. If this story soothed your mind tonight, I invite you to subscribe so you'll be here for our next gentle voyage, the world in 1942. Until then, may your dreams be peaceful, your memories kind, and your heart light as morning air. Good night.